keep it a stack here. British bias, British media, and all this shenanigan, all that jazz is very, very weird and interesting. Shall I tell you why? When you think of a Brit or you think of a British Formula One fan, who would their favourite drivers be? You would think, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, okay? Then you might even go back in the day, your Damon Hills and so on, Jensen Buttons and what have you. And maybe there's a bit of Coulthard in there, sprinkle a bit of that. The one that's really polarising, and yet the one that I thought would be the most loved of all, George Russell. And the George Russell conundrum of it is really weird. I've never seen a more polarising fan base when it comes to George Russell, especially from the Brits. British people love the British, okay? They are proud of their country. They are proud of being from the United Kingdom. They are proud to be British. And if there is a British flag on any sports person, man, woman, they are rooting for that person to the hills. Unless your name is George Russell. And I find this extremely strange. I find it extremely weird. Does anybody know why this is the case? Can somebody tell me why is it that George Russell, I thought this man, when you think of proper Britishness, yeah, man from King's Lynn, speaks good English, speaks quite posh, speaks very well. And yeah, we sit, I'm sitting here looking at all the Formula One fans all around the world. I'm looking at all the Brits all around the world. When I ask them, oh, who's your guy? They're like, it's Hamilton or it's Lando Norris. The Lando Norris fan base, I mean, my goodness, okay? The Lewis Hamilton fan base as well. Holy smokes, okay? But the George Russell fan base doesn't even seem to exist. I can't find them. I don't see them anywhere. And I've heard people who've gone to race circuits where they've gone to Silverstone and people like Lando Norris has got more of a fan base than even Lewis Hamilton at Silverstone, or more than George Russell, definitely. And wherever else you go, even if you're, if you're a Mercedes fan, you're hearing noise about Kimi Antonelli. Oh, Kimi Antonelli's the man. And I wonder if when George joined Mercedes, this is when it started to fade. Because here's what I think. I genuinely think at Williams, George Russell was absolutely loved. I think he was absolutely adored. Williams team, English, British team right there. Claire Williams, Sir Frank Williams, the whole full nine. They've got the British driver in George Russell. It was like, come on. How more does it, how British does this get? Then as time's gone on, he's gone over to Mercedes when Lewis Hamilton was still there. When Lewis Hamilton was still what we thought was his peak, or at least in his prime. And, due to unforeseen circumstances, obviously they were foreseen by Mercedes, the Mercedes car absolutely stinks and it absolutely sucks. And yet, so you can have that divide, you can have that friction between George Russell fans, Hamilton fans at Mercedes, and you think, I'm not too sure, who's this guy? Who's this new kid on the block trying to take Hamilton's crown? And it's there's a big Hamilton fan base in the UK. Let's have it right. There's a huge one, okay? And there's a lot of people who hate Hamilton for God knows what the reasons are. I'm sure some of you can figure it out. But George Russell, all of a sudden now, when I think about him as the main guy at Mercedes, or when I think about him as one of the best drivers in Formula One at this moment in time, you could not tell. Because you know what? We hear about Lando Norris fans and we hear about Lando Norris's performances from Lando Norris fans. We hear about how great Lando Norris is from Lando Norris fans. We hear about how great Lewis Hamilton is from Hamilton fans. All these fan groups, okay, on social media are going and going when it comes to Hamilton and Norris. When it gets to George Russell, though, the crickets. Now, it's not to say he has none. He has some. He definitely has a good batch. Nowhere near Lando Norris or Lewis Hamilton. And I can't figure it out why. I don't get it. Especially because, Russell's not a rude person. He's got a bit of fight in him. He's got a bit of, he does stand his ground. Like the way he spoke about Max Verstappen, was it last season? The way he spoke about him, you think, okay, this is a man who's growing up. He's more mature. He's seeing things and he's calling things out. And, credit to him, that's his thing. And he feels his way about Max Verstappen. And that's fair enough. Let him feel that way about him. And, he called out a lot of the things that nobody else on the grid would call out. And he even, mentioned the fact that, look what happened when it was between him and Lewis. And, it was using examples of Max Verstappen's deplorable behavior in the Formula One garage. And yet, for whatever reason, I don't see this love or this adoration for George Russell the way I see it for Lando Norris, the way I see it for Lewis Hamilton. And George Russell doesn't seem to be a guy who you would say is arrogant, is cocky, he's got terrible behavior, he's a man of bad character, like in terms of what we see on camera. If anything, he's just so chilled. He's very, very very classy, very modelly, very he believes in himself. He definitely has the confidence. Let's have it right, because he feels like he should have been in that Mercedes car years ago. And the guy gets in there and he finally gets in the Mercedes and it's a dud. And it's like, oh my God, the Mercedes that was absolutely killing it, the previous 5 years before he got there, absolutely killing it, even 10 years rather. And now you're sitting there, you're just like, he gets in this car and it's just like, it's not great. And maybe that has all an effect. All of these things I feel like come to a play, because I feel like the George Russell lack thereof fan base came after he moved to Mercedes. Like, I feel like that's when it began. And it's almost like it's because he was head to head with Hamilton, but then Hamilton's not here anymore. And in that time, Lando Norris's fan base has grown exponentially from the pandemic till now. And yet George Russell's still sitting there like, guys, I'm here too, right? I'm the best out of all of these lot. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of even like the new kids on the block, when it was like the Norris, Russell, Leclerc, that kind of group of people, Russell was definitely rated as a kid. But I'm so confused and baffled as to why the Brits don't take to this man. This is the most British man there is. And maybe it's because, I don't know, he gives me the old school British kind of vibe, in the good sense. Like, he gives me all that kind of like, this is the Queen's English. He speaks, he's just like, you could see him as somebody who's in a picture with the royal family. Like, you could just see him in these places. When he's at Wimbledon, you see him when he's at Wimbledon with his partner. You just think, yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. You see some celebrities that go to Wimbledon, you think, that doesn't really fit. Or almost like, what are you doing there? Great that you get to go there. Let's break these stereotypes. Let's have it right. But like when you see somebody who's right there, it's like he was built and born to be like the ideal British driver. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, he doesn't get that love whatsoever. And I find that extremely extraordinary. Maybe it's just me who thinks this way, but I genuinely do not understand the British fan base that doesn't have this love for George Russell the same way it has the love for Hamilton and Lando Norris. And I know what you're thinking, maybe like, okay, look, Hamilton's been here forever, okay, and he's 7-time world champion. So, Peter, what are you talking about? There's mileage. Okay, Norris though. I get it. Norris was here from 2019, was it? 2018, 2019. He was there serving Alonso tea and stuff like that. We get all of that. And he's had his time. And he was in the McLaren that was awful for years. And now he's up here winning races. But George Russell's winning races too. George Russell is the man at Mercedes. He's leading that team. He's doing the business. So why aren't we seeing the props for him? I really don't understand it. I really genuinely don't get it. Maybe I'm crazy. Let me know in the comment section down below. Am I like mad? Am I losing it? If you like George Russell, hit like on this video. And if you like Formula 1 content like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, okay? YouTube thinks you'll like this video over here, so make sure you go ahead and click on that. And until next time, lights out.